I would, however, like to consider a fourth interpretation. In this line of thought, the affinities between Marx and Freud would either be merely coincidental or flawed, nor would either of them be simply wrong. This interpretation implies the strong assumption of an isomorphism and of equiprimordiality between the individual body and the body politic. And there is a strong strand of such isomorphic thought in the history of philosophy. In fact, leads from Plato to Spinoza and Nietzsche, and probably finds its strongest exemplar in 20th century thought in Michel Foucault's idea of micropolitics. The organization of social domination would, according to this interpretation, depend on patterns of precisely this domination in the individual subject. The critique of representation implicit to such interpretations describes two basic aspects of the concept of political ontology. It determines political ontology as a general structure of symbolic representation and reflects its meta-theoretical implications. Furthermore, it lays bare the theoretical political consequences of the question how such a ground could be obtained. But this fourth interpretation, to which I will subscribe, contains yet another dimension. This dimension is, as I have argued throughout my paper, aesthetic. Friedrich Schiller was one of the most explicit theorists of an equiprimordial and isomorphic relation between the constitution of the individual body and the body politic, finding a therapeutic potential in aesthetic rationality. It is recently Jacques Rancière who has made this Schiller our contemporary again. He too emphasizes the potential of aesthetic rationality to subvert dominant orders of representation. In light of this, the relation between the ontologies of Marx and Freud cannot only be conceived of in terms of isomorphism and of the equiprimordiality of the social and the psychological. Both, as was my leading argument, conceive of a therapeutic method that has a strongly aesthetic dimension. And in precisely this sense, Marx and Freud employ the aesthetic as a subversive rationality that can be brought into play on several grounds. For it is the logic of the aesthetic to produce connections, transitions, and to open up the infinity of reference. Such an aesthetic rationality crosses the separation of different rationalities. And as it subverts the fixed order of representation, it opens up the barred symbolic order for different types of emancipatory practices. Association would then be one of its many names. Thank you for bearing with me. And bye.